But, Brandon, we are going to finish up the Primetime Podcast this week, previewing the Wisconsin badges, Bucky's badges. And this one we're going to start off with. I didn't think we'd mention it on this side of the Big Ten in the West, but apparently we have a team that could challenge for the college football playoff. And, Brandon, I just want to ask you this, plain and simple, get it out of the way. Is there a chance Wisconsin makes the college football playoff? Is there really a chance that they can not only win the West, that's probably the easier part, but after winning the West, could this Wisconsin team really beat Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan?
Well, I'll tell you what, is that Wisconsin is actually 20-1 favorites right now before the season starts to win the college football playoff.
Which
with
you told me
Alabama
that.
With the best favorites.
You told me that,
Best
and
odds.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Do they not know who's on the other side of the Big Ten? Like, I would put Ohio State or Penn State far above Wisconsin to get in. Not saying that those aren't higher than Wisconsin, but I am just shocked that Wisconsin's even in the conversation, mainly because of they would have to go up against one of those three teams, with Michigan being included for the Big Ten, because I feel like this is the kind of thought that I have about Wisconsin coming into this year. They might have a very good season, might win the Big Ten West again this season, but in the end, like to quote Lincoln Park, in the end, it doesn't even matter because you're going to lose to Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State. Most likely either Ohio State or Penn State.
So here, let me tell you, the Alabama Crimson Tide, they have the best odds at 5-2 odds. Mm-hmm. The Penn State Nittany Lions are up there at 20-1 odds as well. The Huskies are in there, 20-1 odds. Mm-hmm. Clemson, 25-1 odds. Oklahoma State, 40-1. Florida, 50-1. Miami, 50-1.
Miami's a sleeper team. I like them.
So those
are
the top early 2017 college football national title bets. And there are two Big Ten teams in there, and it's Wisconsin and it's Penn State. I don't see any mention of any Ohio State.
See, that shocks me, though, because in my mind, I would put Ohio State above Wisconsin.
There's no Michigan. There's no Michigan in there either.
Which is interesting. But that one mainly might be because of, like we said, they lost a lot of pieces. But to keep this on Wisconsin.
Yes, it's all on Wisconsin. It's all Wisconsin, this one.
What makes them a college football playoff favorite in your mind?
It's their defense. Mm-hmm. It's their defense. It's the defense that was 7th overall last year, 3rd against the run, 4th in scoring defense. And, Ricky, I think the biggest thing out of that, it's 3rd against the run. They are great against teams trying to run the football. They're great against any team who can't even run the football. They make them look even worse. How many times have we talked on this podcast during these previews that teams need to get better against the run? Teams need to get better against the run. So many times. I'll answer for you since you're not going to answer me.
Well,
so
you
many
knew the
times.
answer. You were going to say it.
It's the fact that Wisconsin, they're already there, but it shows. 7-2 last year in the the conference, 11-3 overall. That shows how good they are. That shows how consistent they are, and it's their defense. This defense is the reason why I think that they have a very good shot of winning the Big Ten overall. Not just their side, overall. They have a very good shot at that. The linebacking core, loaded. They are loaded. They've got depth. The secondary is the question mark. They lose 3 starters there. And then I want to make mention of a couple of things, so give me a minute here.
Go ahead.
The secondary...
The floor is yours, Swanee.
The secondary got owned in a couple of games last year. In a win against Northwestern, Austin Carr had 12 catches for 132 yards and a touchdown. In a win against Georgia State, where they almost gave it up, they won 23-17. Glenn Smith had 5 catches for 131 yards. Robert Davis had 5 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown. And then in a 38-31 loss, a tough one to Penn State towards the end of the season, Saeed Blacknall, 6 catches, 155 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Deshaun Hamilton, 8 catches for 118 yards with no touchdown. That's where they need to get better. That's where they need to get better is the secondary. They can't be giving up that many yards, especially against the good teams like Penn State. Well, they can't have a Trace McSorley who's already a guy who can put up big numbers. You do not want to give him, one, the time, so you got to put pressure on him. But also, when he's throwing up those jump balls, you have got to be able to go and make a play on it.
You know it's a good thing, though, when I look at their schedule? non-conference aside, I'm just talking the Big Ten side of it. Let me name some of the teams that they're going to play, and then what we've talked about. Northwestern. Yeah, they have Thorson coming back, but really the big weapon is Justin Jackson.
Justin Jackson,
They can shut
him down.
him.
Yes.
Thorson, the game becomes a lot harder for Northwestern, becomes a lot easier for Wisconsin. Nebraska, we talked about them. Probably not going to be as good this season. Plus, they've got to replace their quarterback in Tommy Armstrong Jr. Purdue, new head coach coming in. Yes, they had the leading passer in the Big Ten, but I don't think that he's going to be enough, and that team is going to be enough to give Wisconsin any sort of challenge. Maryland could be interesting, but like we talked about there, they're, in my mind, a little bit inexperienced, especially in depth, and that could prove to take effect when we get to late October. And one thought that Dave mentioned to me, this was something that I just thought of, was he even said that he's like, yeah, injuries or something, but when you look at colleges, how often are they using the second string guys? It's not like the NFL where it's just first string guys all the time, and Maryland could fall into that hole. Illinois, we talked about them. Who's going to be their quarterback? We don't know. So they don't have a consistent quarterback. Their wide receivers might be injured if Dudek can't stay on the field, which I hope you are, buddy. I hope you are. I'm pulling for you. Indiana, they have a quarterback that we talked about, needs to kind of bring the turnovers down, so that's a quarterback in question. Iowa, we talked about their quarterback situation being iffy. Yeah, Michigan has Wilton Spate coming back, but the defense is what's going to cost Michigan in that game if they lose. And then Minnesota, they also have a quarterback conversation. So the majority of the teams that Wisconsin's playing in this conference have quarterback questions, or have quarterbacks where it's like, yeah, they have a guy from last year, but don't worry, he's not going to be anything that you have to worry about, and he's not going to torch you for yardage. The good thing is, if they do play a JT Barrett or a Swarley, it will be in the Big Ten title game, and hopefully by the end of the season, they have their ducks all in a row.
But to go off of that point is that it's not necessarily always for the regular season.
Oh, it's for the postseason.
It's that postseason, because you don't want to go the whole season. Oh man, you really shut down that run.
Yep.
And those quarterbacks, they didn't have great stats against you.
You don't want it to be too easy.
And then you get to a game against a McSwarley, you get to a game against a JT Barrett, or you even got to a game against a Wilton Spate, and they're able to have success against you.
Or the dream scenario of what if you win the Big Ten, then you have to play Jalen Hurts in your first college football playoff game.
Well, exactly. That's what I was going to get to, is that those teams in the college football playoff, outside of a couple of games this past year, they're usually going to be able to put up some pretty good numbers. And I'm not saying that Ohio State can't put up good numbers, or that Washington can't either. They didn't put up the numbers that they would like to, because the two teams they were playing were able to hold them down because of their defenses.
Look at just last year, the 4 college football playoff teams. Jalen Hurts, Jake Browning, Deshaun Watson, JT Barrett.
Yeah.
All solid quarterbacks in college football.
Yes, very
all in
much
the college football playoff. Even if Penn State was in, would still be a quality quarterback in the college football playoff. So really, you have that position down. You're one step closer to the college football playoff than teams that don't.
Think of another one that you may have to face. A Sam Darnold.
Ooh, I forgot. They might actually do things. I keep forgetting that USC might actually do things, because I'm not used to them being a powerhouse like they used to be. Shame on me. But the big thing I like about the Badgers this year is the schedule. It is much, much more manageable this year than just a year ago, where in the opening 2 months of last season, here are 4 teams that they had to play. You ready for it? LSU, Michigan, Ohio State, and Iowa. Yeah, you get 2 of those back, but they're in November. And also, Iowa, we talked about, they have huge questions on offense. Could be a different team. And Michigan has lost 11 tacklers on defense. Could be a totally different team. Yes, I know I'm going to give them the same benefit that I have given some teams, that you get to that late in the season, hopefully those problems are fixed and you've got guys in those holes. but it's still good for Wisconsin that you don't have to play those teams up front. You don't have to play them within the first 2 months of the season in September and October. You can wait and play them in November in the third month of the season.
Now, let me get to a point that probably a lot of Wisconsin fans have been wondering, well, why haven't you talked about this yet? Because Ricky wanted me to say, what do you think is going to help get them to the college football playoff? And I believe it's the defense. The defense is going to be the biggest thing for them. But moving to the offense, Alex Hornibrook. What is going to be the next step for Alex Hornibrook? And I think that with him, 20 touchdowns this year should not be out of the question. 20 touchdowns should not be out of the question. You lose some very, very good running backs. But you have Bradrick Shaw, who's going to be there. He had 88 carries last season, 457 yards, 5 touchdowns. He was nowhere near the starter. That's pretty impressive, though. When you're about the third running back on the depth chart, and that's what you're able to get. Tywan Deal is a solid veteran, and then they're getting Chris James, a transfer from Pitt, who is pretty solid as well. So you've got a pretty loaded running back position, and your depth up front is huge. It's a huge plus for Wisconsin. I think that if Hornibrook, you pair this defense, if Hornibrook rises to the occasion, Wisconsin will, without a doubt, win the West. Without a doubt. No doubt in my mind. No ifs, ands, or buts. No question marks. If Hornibrook rises up, stays healthy, and throws for 20 touchdowns or more, or 2,500 yards or more, and this defense does what it did last year, check mark.
You just reminded me of something my grandma used to say, no butts, no nuts, no coconuts. Is that what you're saying about this team?
That's what I'm saying.
That's what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying without saying it. That's what I'm saying.
You know what's another thing that's going to make Hornibrook's season a lot easier this year? Bart Houston isn't in Wisconsin.
Not there.
He's in Pennsylvania playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. That's where he is. That's going to make the year a lot easier because I look at Hornibrook last year, and the big thing that kept him back in my mind is Wisconsin was a offensively shit or get off the pot kind of a team for me. 1 week we're talking, well, is it going to be Hornibrook? Is it going to be Houston? Next week, is it going to be Hornibrook? Is it going to be Houston? Then we'd be like, well, you know what? I think they found their guy. Then we'd be wrong, and we're back to the question of is it Hornibrook or is it Houston? This year, I think it's going to be a lot easier that Alex Hornibrook is going to get the chance to be the consistent starter, and hopefully that does some good things. The running back side of it, like you mentioned, there's one position I don't worry about when it comes to Wisconsin. It's kind of the same thing as Michigan State. You just don't worry about the running backs. You just don't worry about them. Whether it's Melvin Gordon, whether it's Corey Clement, whether it's Monta Ball, they seem to just have these guys growing out back that they can just pluck off the tree and they're good to go.
Oh, sure.
That's basically, they just grow running backs right in their backyard off the running back tree.
They take the Alabama formula. They got the same seeds.
Well, they're a little bit different. They're the different seeds up there in Wisconsin, but they're basically the same thing. Just, we lost one, pluck one off the running back tree, put him out there, let him go. And he's right from the pole. He's ripe off the tree. I don't worry about that position with Wisconsin. It's Hornibrook that's going to have to step up, though. Because you're going to be the constant guy doesn't automatically mean that this team's going to be better. You have to prove that the team is going to be better with you. You have to have a better season. You have to be the consistent piece for this team because the offensive line lost some pieces, one of which being Ryan Ramczyk, who is now in the NFL as well. This is a team that has the pieces to win the Big Ten West. They are my favorite to win the Big Ten West. My only question is when we get to postseason time, and more importantly, that Big Ten title game, can you beat a Penn State? Can you beat an Ohio State? And if you do beat them, how are you going to fare against the other teams that you could see? Washington, Alabama, USC, maybe even in Oklahoma. We don't know what's going to be. Can you compete with those teams? I'll throw even a Clemson out there, even though I don't think Clemson will be college football playoff worthy this year. That's my true question with this team. When it gets to postseason time, Do you have the chips on the table, especially offensively, to compete with the big boys?
I think that's always going to be the question all the time. Do you have the offensive pieces? We talked about it a couple of moments ago that the teams that were there last year, they had the offensive pieces. Washington, and a surprise to me, Washington ended up being the best team in the Pac-12.
Even though they lost to USC.
Even though they lost to USC, but USC didn't get a good enough start early.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that they did not find themselves there, along with other teams like Oklahoma, such like that. But Washington, give them all the credit in the world. They did everything that they needed to do last year. They did a great job. They had a great offense. You look at Clemson, great offense. You look at Ohio State, great offense. And then you look at Alabama and great offense. These teams aren't getting there because they lucked out. All they got is defense, and they only have one guy on offense that can do it. No, those aren't the teams that are getting there. They've got great offense, and usually they have a pretty locked down defense.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And this team, I'm not worried about the defense. The thing I'm worried about is Hornibrook at the most, but I'm really worried about what is this team going to do after they win the Big Ten West. Because like I said, this is the team, I think it's a one-dog race, maybe a two if Northwestern challenges them. But really, to me, it's a one-dog race for me in the Big Ten West, and it's basically which team do you get to lose to in Penn State, Ohio State, or even Michigan. I still take any of those three teams from what I call the Big Ten Beast over a Wisconsin. However, I'm going to throw this out there. It's not going to happen, but I'll throw it out there. What if Michigan State wins? If Michigan State wins the Big Ten East, do you think then Wisconsin has a chance? Because I would put that as like the tables have turned. Now Wisconsin's in the running to get to the college football playoff. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't have Michigan State winning the Big Ten.
If Michigan State or Ohio State?
Michigan State.
I thought you said Ohio State.
Michigan State. I still take Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State over Wisconsin.
If Michigan State
wins the Big Ten East by some miraculous miracle,
I would put Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That would be like a table of turns, and it's like, oh, maybe now you can get to the college football playoff a lot easier than I thought it would. But any last things you want to say about Wisconsin before I wrap up this whole podcast?
No, I'd say, Wisconsin right now, especially even after talking tonight, after, looking over the teams the last couple of days leading up to tonight, I would say that Wisconsin, without a doubt, looks like the best team, both sides, of having the chance to win the Big Ten West because they have a quarterback in place. He's young, but I think he makes the strides this year, stays healthy. Their running backs are good. Their defense is solid. This is the team that has the looks of being the winner of the West.
Well, this is where I want to thank you guys for either watching on YouTube, if you're watching the individual Wisconsin segment, or you stuck around for the entire full-length podcast on YouTube. I want to thank you. Also, if you stuck around for the full-length podcast on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or Stitcher, I want to thank you guys for sticking around and giving us a little listen and giving us a part of your day. If you're a Wisconsin Badger fan, let us know down below in the comment section. If you're a Big Ten football fan, let us know what you think about the Badgers down below in the comment section. I want to thank you guys yet again, like I always do. I overthank you guys, but you guys love the thanks for watching and listening to the podcast. It's been great talking about college sports with you guys for another week. Brandon and I will be back next week to start previewing the Pac-12 conference. And as always, have a good day, everybody.